let's talk about the actual range deviations themselves. Now, there's a little bit of assumption that takes place here by myself, in assuming that most of you are already familiar with standard deviation projections and Dexter fibs. These play an important part when we use some of the ranges or range deviations. But if none of you are familiar with those at all, let's take a brief introduction into what these are and how we can use them. So generally, without any tool like the Liquidity Depth Pro, we would use a normal fib retracement tool. And what we would then do is input a series of standard deviations. Okay. In my case, the standard deviations that I would use for this would be 0 and 1, 1, minus 1.5, minus 2, minus 2.5, minus 2.33, minus 3.5, minus 3.75, minus 4, and if you'd like, minus 6, minus 6.5 for maximum expectation on any expansion. What that would then look like on a chart is something like this. And we could use these, for example, if we had a defined range like so. Okay, let's say this was our defined range in time. We took the low, we took the high, and we then, let's just make that a bit lighter, we then projected above and below standard deviations of this particular range: 1 to 1.5, 2, 2.33, 2.5, 3.5, 3.75, 4, 6 to 6.5, right? The range deviation tool, Liquidity Depth Pro Plus, would offer you these extensions above and below automatically. So how I would generally use them is when I come in and I look at my, let's go for something specific. We come into the Liquidity Depth Pro Plus tool. We head over down to the Show RD section of the tool. And specifically, I want to look at, let's say, London's 0200 to 0215. Okay. And what I want to do here is I want to show the wick range, and I want to put the standard deviations, what I've just shown you. So it would be, let's look at 1, 1.5, 2, 2.33, 2.5, we could go 3, 3.75, 4, 6, 6.5. Okay. If we wanted any specific wick deviation zones, it would be, we could go, let's say, 2 to 2.5. We could go 3 to 4, and we could go 6 to 6.5. Once you have that, you click OK. We'll wait for this to populate. What it then would show us on a chart is something that looks like this. Okay. Let me just come in here and see what happened here on the deviations. Wick deviation zones. Sorry, my mistake. 2 to 2.5. Comma space. I think that should fix that up. Just give me a sec. There we go. So now what I can do for this particular deviations is if I have the 2 to 215 range right here in London, I know that at each of these deviations I expect something to occur and a mirror deviation play to happen to the opposing side. So generally reversals would occur between 1 to 1.5, but there are instances where we go to 2.5. In this case, you see right here. These can be extended out in time as well. If I do something like this, you come into the tool and click on extension type, wick standard deviations for a day, and we extend them out. Now you're seeing these zones being extended out in time from previous days and current day. So in this case, comes to 2.33 here, starts to mirror deviate. We expect at least 2.33 the other side, and look at the max expansion here, 6 to 6.5. You could do the same thing, for example, for the range or range deviations in New York. And I've given you all of this already in the 2 Degrees live stream. It's available on my YouTube channel. You guys can go back and watch that. 9:15, and we look at 9 to 9:15. Let's look at this. I'm just going to turn off the extension type so it makes things a bit neater. Extension type none for now, and I'm going to draw this in manually. Look at 9 to 9:15 from Friday. Where does price deviate to? Almost to the tick. Right there. 1 week deviation zone. Where would we expect price to deviate to afterward? We could play a full expansion play, meaning we could expect price to start delivering towards 6 to 6.5, right there. And we come pretty close to it on Friday itself. But here we go back to 2 to 2.5, and then we go to the 3 to 4 standard deviation zone here. And most likely is when the market opens up, it's gonna reach for 6 to 6.5 standard deviation zone right there. Okay, so this is a basic introduction to the deviations themselves and how I use these specific Dexter fib deviations for the smaller ranges and max expansion targets. When we talk about the 6 to 9 range, for example, those are very specific deviations as well. 0.25, 0.5, 1 wick, and then 1.33, 1.66. Okay, so those are all of the deviations that we would use. You could chop and change, you could add, you could subtract. That's all based on personal preferences.